All right, now we're gonna go to the Q&A section. I would like for people, those who wanna ask questions directly, to let us know in the chat so that we can technically see how we can manage that. And also those who have questions but would like, prefer to just send it to test, we can also collect them and ask it directly to the ambassador, to Ambassador Bamba or Ambassador. So I think we can start, right?
I have a question.
Everybody, mute yourself and
yes, this
ask
is
your question.
This is Eric.
Who's your question addressed to? Both of them, I guess.
Yeah, this is Eric speaking now. If you can hear me.
No, I hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Bamba, for your preliminary statements. And some of the points that you mentioned are very clear. Before I chime in with so many other questions, I just want you to comment on the idea that in the Ivorian political microcosm, it is the very first time that we see such a strong unity among the opposition party. Is it something that is fair to say at this very moment?
Of course, thank you very much for that question. Actually, is the result of the way the Ivorian people has felt the dictatorship imposed to them by Mr. Ouattara regime. We have never experienced that in Cote d'Ivoire. Even the time of Mr. Gbagbo, the freedom of speech was guaranteed. You could see in the newspaper, you could say everything you want. With Mr. Ouattara, never before in Cote d'Ivoire, the judicial system has been that much instrumentalized to deprive the people from their fundamental rights, the right to the freedom of speech. And this show of unity is the consequence of the setback of democracy and the rule of law in Cote d'Ivoire. In political science, a prominent professor, I think Professor Telmark Carmen, has said, democracy, since democracy is something which is threatened with extinction, you have to be vigilant, and democracy should be protected at all times. That's what's happening in Cote d'Ivoire. Remember the gain we have obtained since 1990 with the imposition of, the emergence of multi-party system in the time of Fort Boigny. And for that, you have to praise President Laurent Gbagbo, which would remain the symbol of the emergence of multi-parties in Cote d'Ivoire, the free speech of Cote d'Ivoire. Of course, President Fort Boigny, who is a wise and who have a great capacity for anticipation, has understood by 1990 with the fall of the wall of the Berlin Wall, that the world has changed. So in Ivorian constitution, there was an article who has put in his provision the multi-partism. So President Foubaï said, okay, it's time to activate that provision, and every party is free to declare itself and to take part in the political life of Cote d'Ivoire. Just the same, today, all the political opposition party, the union, the civil society, in unison, they said, you cannot go back. What we have gained is an asset, is our capital, is our part of our property. We couldn't go back, we couldn't back down, and they are ready to defend that at all costs. That's what explains this display of unity unprecedented in the Ivorian political life. Thank you.
So thank you, Ambassador. Unless somebody else has
we have Kadida Dombia who has a question. I would like to spend a few minutes on Mrs. Candidia. She's a very advocate for the gender in Cote d'Ivoire. She's also owner of a newspaper in the community, and she's very engaged in women activism, even in the U.S. So, Candidia Doumbia, you got the.
Okay, thank you very much. I am thrilled to be in this panel, and my question, I think I typed it, and the question is, what can be done overseas by the international community or the diaspora to support the resistance in our country? Because my feeling is that if we let things go the way it is, and then there is an election the 31st, even if it's a fake one, even if President Ouattara is not eligible, it's going to be difficult afterwards to fix things, if I may say it like that. So what can be done? What should be done? Can somebody guide us so we can have an idea? Because people are doing what they can do right now on the ground, but it seems to me that it is not enough, and it will not stop Mr. Ouattara. Thank you. The question is to both ambassadors. Thank you.
Ambassador Cohen, go ahead.
I think that's a very important issue. I'm in the United States, and I know the U.S. government generally does not become involved in such situations. If you look throughout Africa, there are many processes that are illegitimate. For example, recently in Togo, there was an election, and it was quite clear that the president lost the election to the challenger, Mr. Agbeome Kojo. But yet they declared that the president was the winner. The U.S. expressed disappointment, and they're asking for recounts. The same thing happened in Rwanda, where the president won the election with 95% of the vote. We know nobody gets 95% of the vote in how popular they are. So the U.S. expressed disappointment. So the U.S. is not going to become deeply involved in the details in any country. But of course, they have leverage. They give foreign aid. They could stop giving foreign aid, as they did in Sudan after Osama bin Laden was there. So the United States is not going to get involved. They see this as a problem for the international, for the Ivorian community. And if the Ivorian community needs assistance, they should look to the African Union, in my opinion, because I've seen experiences in Africa where there have been military coups, or there have been very other undemocratic practices. And I think the African Union, which has a Security Council, I think has done a very good job in bringing governments back to democracy. So I would say that the civil society of Cote d'Ivoire should start making contact with the African Union to see if you can bring them in. They have much more credibility than the rest of us outside of Africa.
Yes, I will follow up. And to say, of course, I greatly agree with you, Kadi Doumbia, because that's why, if you remark in my point I made, I say for the 4 points, I say my conclusion was the election could not be held in such condition. There will be no election on the 31st because the people of Cote d'Ivoire know if they go to the election, they will give legitimacy to Mr. Ouattara. We know that this election are rigged in advance. I explained that to you. The Constitutional Court, as an independent electoral commission, is not independent at all. All 600 people composing this electoral body have been appointed by the ruling party. How do you think they will oppose, they will be neutral or partial? No, they are subservient to Mr. Ouattara, to the ruling party. That's one point. Secondly, after the Independent Electoral Commission has carried out the electoral process, the result should be officially and formally confirmed by the Constitutional Court. This court is also subservient to Mr. Ouattara, as they have so eloquently demonstrated on 14 September when they validated this unconstitutional candidacy of Mr. Ouattara. How could you think we will be going to a proper and credible and fair electoral process in those conditions? No way. The opposition in unison has clearly make it clear, declare that there will be no election. Mr. Soro has said that in a recent press conference in Paris. There will be no election on the 31st October. That's clear. The people of Cote d'Ivoire know that's the only way for it to preserve its independence, to preserve its right to choose its representative and its rulers. That is clear. And of course, the international community could only help us, could support, could make pressure. Of course, the United Nations has the statutory responsibility to address this issue because the situation of Cote d'Ivoire has the potential to disrupt international peace and security in the West African situation. The United Nations has that responsibility because under the provision of the Charter on Chapter 6, has a sort of gradation of measures to sanction, to good offices, and until Chapter 7, where the action enforcing peace process. But we have also the Chapter 8, which deal with the regional arrangement. Under Chapter 8, United Nations Security Council could, in conjunction with the ECOWAS and African Union, address that issue and try to put in action preventive diplomacy. I think that's what is going on right now, but we don't have a clear picture of the roadmap yet. But I think that's what will become next to the tour done by Minister Chambers with the delegation of ECOWAS and African Union and European Union. That's the dynamic going on right now. But as a member, speaking on behalf of the PDCI and the whole opposition, because we are on the same wavelength, I could assure you there will be no election on the 31st of October in such condition, because that's why Mr. Ouattara is, they are hasting, they are speeding up to have this election on the 31st at all costs, because they know everything is rigged and they are racing to make people before, in French, of course, as a fait accompli, which should not be the case, which should not be easy for them, because the people will stand up and say no to the forfeiture, no to the hold-up right now underway. Thank you.
May I please to chime in, Eden here, assistant?
Yes, Dr. Eric, since you work in the community, I think this question was addressed to us. Our question was, knowing all this situation here, the rigged process for the election, and we know the election was not properly done and it's rigged. And what the Ambassador Cohen is saying, and diplomatically, is that the ball is in our side. We are the one that have to do something. And I know you work for the community here. You do a lot. What can you say about that question? Because I think it's a very good question from Kadidia.
Yeah, I want to thank Adidia and in part also support what Ambassadors Bamba and Cohen brought to the table in here by shifting the gear onto the people of the Ivory Coast. When the Ambassador Cohen says that the U.S. will withhold its position as respecting the sovereignty of the Ivory Coast, it means that the popular sovereignty, the strength of the people of Ivory Coast, both at home and in the diaspora, is where the emphasis is being put. In terms of actions and things that we can do, my sister Kadidia, of course, you'll see that this current event that we are having now is a part of the number of actions or things that we can do. Why is that? We live in the globalized world today, where of course whatever is going on on one side of the world can be very quickly followed. But there is also a lot of misunderstandings when it comes to African politics, when it comes to Ivorian politics. That's where we, as members of the diaspora, we come in to clarify things. Today, what is going on in the Ivory Coast is a clear-cut thing. Since 2000, at least the people of Cote d'Ivoire, as Ambassador Cohen said, if we want to follow the spirit and the letter of the Constitution, we have all elected to be on the side of a political culture that precludes the people, whoever it is, may that be the best president ever or the best leader ever, to seek a third term or to be at the head of the country over 2 terms. This is our political culture now in the Ivory Coast that Mr. Ouattara is trying to renege back on. So, building on that, once we have that point, we're being clear, we can, of course, host this kind of events even here. The second thing that we can also do, and then we have seen people doing, and we are doing the community, is constantly writing to not only the elected officials in the United States, but also to quite a number of international organizations, non-profit organizations, NGOs that also deal with human rights. Because we are addressing a human rights situation in here with people's political, social, and civil and political rights being denied in it here. So I know that, with another group, we wrote to the Kofi Annan Foundation, which somewhere early this month issued a statement recommending that, what the people in the Ivory Coast pose and do not hold the election on October the 31st. You do also have the the Institute for Security and Studies that also issued a statement, same thing with Amnesty International. But they were able to do all this because we in the community, we concerned with the well-being of the members of our families, our country in the Ivory Coast, were able to write them and clearly explain what the constitutional provision in the Ivory Coast and the reasons why Mr. Ouattara should not stand election. And I believe that's my way of answering this very important questions that Kadidia asked.
Thank you very much. So if there's another question, we got 30 more minutes, and we would like to use this time to really have you guys participate in this discussion.
Because silence and time is playing against us, I would love for Ambassador Bamba to probably come back again on the prospects.
Eric, could you please wait? I think I have somebody want to ask a question.
Oh, please, I'm sorry.
Please, thank you. Now, I think we have Mr. Matthew from Inner City Press.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks a lot. And thanks for doing this. This has been really interesting. I just wanted to, I know that there's been some, I saw that a letter had been sent to the Secretary General, and I know that, for example, I remember Ambassador Bamba from being at the UN at that time. What's been the response, do you think, from the Secretariat of the UN? And what would you like to counsel? Right, this month Russia is the president, but do you feel the dynamics within the Security Council? Is there anything that the UN can do? What should it do more? I've seen them been not responsive in many of these type cases, but what's happening on this one? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Matthew. Of course, we have, as I said in my presentation, President Bédier has sent a formal request to Secretary General Antonio Guterres to include the issue of the alarming issue of Cote d'Ivoire on the agenda of the Security Council. Of course, we all know the dynamic of the Security Council. We should know that at the same time, President Bédier has conducted a mission to Ghana. And if you know, you should know that Ghana is sitting current president chairman of ECOWAS, head of state conference. So the ECOWAS will take that matter to the African Union. And also we have contact with South Africa, because South Africa is the current chairman of the African Union, head of state conference. And both jointly should seize the Security Council. They should seize, of course, the president of Russia, which is the October month's current president of the Security Council, to include urgently this issue on the agenda of the Security Council. Of course, all the three African countries sitting in the Security Council as a non-permanent member, namely South Africa, Niger, and Tunisia, will support that move. That's the dynamics we used to play out in such a situation. But what I would like to mention, I said, and I repeat it, it is the statutory responsibility of the Security Council to address risk-bearing situation which could lead to civil war. You know, Cote d'Ivoire has experienced that 10 years ago. And in terms of political science, there is a law set by Professor Collier, and which says when a conflict situation has not fully and properly managed, and when the root causes has not been sufficiently addressed, generally, in 10 years' term, this crisis relapse. This is so true, because that's what's happening in Cote d'Ivoire. We know that, everybody knows that. So what are we waiting for? And we all know the merit of prevention. We're talking about prevention in our species all along. But what is done concretely to enforce prevention? We knew and we saw Mr. Ouattara in his dictatorial drive. Nobody told anything to stop him. He had to be stopped. The constitution should be upheld. And Mr. Ouattara, when he said he has no intention to respect, to comply with the ruling of the African Court, this is a blunt violation, because in Article 155 of the Constitution, it said all the ordinances or the judgment of the judicial system, domestic and international, should be executed. This is the law. Nobody is above the law. But Mr. Ouattara said he won't comply, and there is nothing that's done. That's why we think the international community has to be tough on the case of Cote d'Ivoire, because Cote d'Ivoire is important. It is a showcase for the whole West African sub-region. And if this matter is not addressed properly, and the international community doesn't act swiftly, I'm afraid the situation will be spilling over, and we'll have aspirant dictator who will be flourishing all around the region. So the Security Council has a very historical responsibility in that situation, and the Security Council should take its full responsibility. So we'll be all responsible, means the P5, meaning France, China, Russia, UK, and United States. They will be responsible. You cannot hide or shy away because of the so-called sovereignty. What sovereignty? The real sovereignty belongs to the people. When the rulers are, if you will, spoiling and oppressing the population, the people, they are trampling that sovereignty. They could hide behind the sovereignty and to say the international community has nothing to say.
I just want to ask one follow-up. I'll ask just one follow-up, and then I'll mute myself. And I'd love to hear what you have to say, Ambassador Cohen. What I wanted to ask about the role of France, because I know, having been, when I was in the UN, covered, they seem to side often with many of these three-term. They do it in Cameroon. They've done it elsewhere. Do you have what in the terms of the dynamic of the Security Council? What do you think? Not that France should rule the roost, but what is their position? Do you believe in terms of it becoming an agenda item, whether in closed consultations or otherwise on the council's agenda? Thank you. And then I'll mute myself, and I just wanted to get that out there. Thanks.
Well, I don't think this is ready. As I said, I think if you're going to look outside of of Cote d'Ivoire for assistance, the place to go is the African Union. I remember I was very close to President Lansana Conté of Guinea. We were very good friends. And when he died, the military officers took power. The normal electoral process was not allowed to proceed. They took power. So the African Union just came in very quietly and said, look, this is the international community, the Guinean people are going to reject this. They don't want a military dictatorship to replace Lansana Conté. So quietly, they brought the electoral process into being. And I think this, if you're going to do some quiet work, I would bring the African Union. I also wanted to call attention to something that I didn't mention before. After the troubles of 2010, after the end of the fighting, there was an agreement between former President Conan Bédié and Alassane Ouattara. Conan Bédié said, my party, the PDCI, will not present a candidate. We will support you. But when you finish your 2 terms, you should allow us to present the next candidate, and you will support him or her. So President Ouattara has violated this agreement, which I think gives another indication of his illegitimacy in this next election. Thank you.
Ambassador Bamba, Matthew of Inner City has a question previously.
Yes, indeed. Of course, France has a very obvious interest in the situation in Cote d'Ivoire. Remember, France was the pen holder during the crisis 2010, 2011. Of course, I was ambassador of Cote d'Ivoire at the UN at the time. I had many sessions at the Security Council with respect to that issue. I know, of course, there are dynamics. France was a pen holder. France will be again the pen holder for that present crisis because it's a follow-up. And this is a reflection of the failure, to me, of the Security Council not to monitor really the management of crisis until its full completion, and particularly to address the root causes of that crisis. Remember, after I was ambassador there, when Mr. Ouattara seeks power, we were on the management of that crisis. Of course, at one point, they said, oh, the DDR is over. Cote d'Ivoire has unilaterally declared that the DDR meaning disarmament, demobilization, and reinsertion was over. There had been no assessment whatsoever by the United Nations. They said, okay, it's over. Cote d'Ivoire says it's over. Okay, it's over. Whereas a lot of arms was in circulation in Cote d'Ivoire. of course, clearly, Mr. Ouattara government has poorly failed in completing the DDR. They are also poorly failed in terms of SSR. SSR is the security sector reform. They are poorly failed because there will be a burgeoning of militia and parallel forces in Cote d'Ivoire. Equally, Mr. Ouattara has failed with respect to the national reconciliation. All those elements were the ingredient for the relapsing of the crisis. That's why I'm accusing the Security Council not having monitored enough this management. Another point which puzzles me, Cote d'Ivoire has now gone through the phase of peace building. You have a peace building commission because when you exit a crisis, you were on the path of reconstruction. Reconstruction also means reconstructing the confidence. You talk about confidence building. Nothing has been done. And quite the contrary, Mr. Gbagbo was maintained in exile. Mr. Soro was ousted, not to mention this despicable practice of Mr. Ouattara called rattrapage ethnique, meaning catching up, ethnic catching up. Mr. Ouattara has appointed in all sectors of the administration people originating from the northern part. Myself, I'm from the northern part of Cote d'Ivoire as well, but I was ashamed when you see a list after reading the let's say the communique of the cabinet meeting each Wednesday. It's a shame. The list goes on. The name of only from the northern part of Cote d'Ivoire. You have the impression that the intelligent mind has concentrated in the part of Cote d'Ivoire, which is a shame. It's laughable, but it's a tragedy as well. So, Mr. Ouattara failed in those all those aspects. That's the reason this crisis is relapsing, and people ask, look what Mr. Ouattara going in his dictatorial spree, because he was let's say doing whatever he wants. He has concentrated all the power in his sole end: executive power, judiciary power, legislative power. He was doing whatever he pleases. The international community have seen that and I said nothing. Why are you surprised of the outcome? And I say again, to respond to your question, Mr. Martin, if, and this will be done so, there will be a joint African initiative to bringing to the president of the Security Council in Russia, the case of Cote d'Ivoire. It will be borne by all the African group in unison, in unity. I don't see anyone who could oppose that. And of course, France, because he has knowledge, he has the memory of that situation, will of course naturally be the pen holder. And I think France will be doing things properly because today everybody's watching and you know what should be done. And I could tell you, we will be going into a transition period. The transition period will be conducted by all the stakeholders. I go and they will have the talk. And that's why President Bédier asked Mr. Gutierrez to appoint it without delay a special envoy for Cote d'Ivoire, and we'll just start the business. Thank you.
All right, Eric, give me a second. Ambassador Herman want to say something, and I'll let you talk. Okay, please, thank you.
One thing quickly. President Ouattara visited France about a month ago. I don't know if you remember that. And I followed this in the French press. And it was clear that the French government was very cold. There was no enthusiasm, no statements by President Macron. My good friend Ouattara is here. Zero. There was no dinners or lunches given for him. And the French press analysts were saying that President Macron gave advice to President Ouattara not to run. That was a bad idea.
Okay, Eric, again, you know, we're doing this together. And what I want you to do is we have two guests from the Center for Responsibility to Protect. Did you hear me? Yes. Yes. Hi. All right, go ahead now. We would like to hear from you. The ambassadors, the ambassadors with an S. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline from the Global Center for the Responsibility to Protect. Thank you for inviting us. This has been an informative discussion. I think as a follow-up to the questions on the Security Council and international response, I'm wondering if anything has been done to reach out to other UN mechanisms to try and generate at least a response to raise awareness of the risks and kind of condemn potential attacks on civilians. You know, last week and the week before, the ICC prosecutor, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and the UN Special Advisor on Prevention of Genocide, or acting UN Special Advisor on Prevention of Genocide, all put out statements about the elections in Guinea coming up this week. So I'm wondering if you could generate a similar set of reactions around Cote d'Ivoire to sort of raise the flag around the risks. And then I think another question I have for the ambassador, based on sort of the work we did with him in the past, is how do the risks today compare to the ones in 2010? Obviously, there's a lot of sort of democratic space slippage since then, but you know, are militias equipped to be mobilized quickly? Are there sort of direct risks to populations that are on the same scale that we saw with when President Ouattara was elected originally?
Thank you, Jocelyn. And I have said that in my introductory remark. I said we have very concerned with respect to the prevention of mass atrocity. Because, of course, all election in Africa, West Africa area in particular, have the potential to generate violence and mass atrocity. Because, of course, there is no upholding of the rule of law and democracy and democratic alternation, which is at the heart of a real, genuine democratic entrenchment, which is not the case. And having said that, in this current situation, the risk are still high. Because, as I said, we have seen the emergence of parallel forces. We know they exist. They have names. They have names. They are directly, if we will, commissioned at the presidency of Cote d'Ivoire. We know those who are the commissioner of that. We know they have a place, they have names, they have strategy. They are caches, weapon caches spread all over the national territory, prepositioned, and militiamen were assigned to each site, ready to enter into action when they give the signal. And of course, the scenario is the following one. Mr. Ouattara will have his election at all costs on 31st. He will be declared winner. And the preposition element of those militia will enter into action and to repress with bloodbath, bloodshed, every popular protest or uprising. That's the plan. And they have lists of targeted person of the opposition who will be assassinated, arrested, extrajudicial killing will be perpetrated. What other words will you use if not genocide. That's what is going on. So I have to flag that. I'm alerting, I'm blowing the whistle strongly to put that in the front of the international community. Things are very, very dire and very concerning and alarming in Cote d'Ivoire. Something should be done. And of course, in this regard, I call on the International Criminal Court to direct his spotlight on Cote d'Ivoire with this regard, and to document everything and to prosecute afterward those commissioners and perpetrators. That's what I want to say. So I think you have work to do just in the Global Center. You have to put the spotlight fully on the Cote d'Ivoire situation right now, because genocide is, we are in the brink of some genocide as well. Thank you.
I want to bring in Khadija Doumbia. Khadija, we know that women are being also victimized during this crisis. We got 4 women that we never seen in the uprising or any democratic movement in the Ivory Coast since Youssoufou J, women being jailed for their thinking. And this is the first time. Could you talk to us about those leaders in jail right now? Thank you.
Thank you. I think that women have always been on the ground fighting. The only thing is that men were just in front. Even when there's work done on the ground, it's women. I think that having women working and leading and being jailed is an indication of something new happening, not really a change, but like women are taking ownership of what's going on. Women want a seat at the table because at the end, whatever is going to happen will impact them and will impact their children. We have rights, we have a voice, and when a woman goes out to vote, she goes out with the entire family. When a man goes to vote, he goes by himself. So in our African culture, even though we pretend to be very modern right now, the fact that those women were jailed just because they were expressing themselves, they've been jailed and they lost their jobs and everything. This is extreme. And this doesn't look good for the power in place. My belief is that we've been in this dictatorship for a long time. Now it is pushing to the real extreme, and we need to wake up. If you see women in Africa going out and working and leading, that means that things are really bad. And this is a violation of their human rights. This is a humanitarian issue. This is a violation of their civil rights, and it is not right. And the only thing we're seeing right now is just talking. So my thinking is that without violence, what can be done when you have a president who is not relying on his own national army, but who has militia? I think that the political arena in our country and the international community have been playing a game, and we're paying right now, because when he was doing it, everybody could see it. When he had those militia, the politicians, whatever the board, whatever the party didn't say anything, they were just watching. And when the government was buying those weapons, the international community didn't say, oh no, they did sell them. So now we're in a situation where the population is paying. But what has changed from 2015 is like in 2010, there was this election civil war. So in 2015, people were like, no, because they've been saying that if he's not elected, we're going to have a crisis. But this time, people are saying a crisis or not a crisis, this is enough. And I think that it should be enough. I think he put himself in such a difficult situation that he thinks that he has to keep on going. Even if he's capable of having those elections, he will not go anywhere because enough is enough. So if the population has to do it by itself, it's fine. But then we don't want to hear anybody coming and telling us in the middle of our things that, oh, you should do that or that. If we cannot get help, it has to be clear, because what is happening right now, nobody is clear. So people think that they may get help from overseas. If we're not supposed to get any help from overseas, it has to be clear right now so people can take, take ownership of their own fight and move on. Because right now we are ready to fight for our democracy, to fight for our freedom. And women are in front of everything right now. And it is a real shame what is going on. There's nothing, without forgetting that we still have people in jail since 2011. So this is not just women, it's everything. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for your touching. By the way, I would like to thank Global Center for Responsibility to Protect for the article that they wrote about the Ivory Coast situation. I would like to thank you a lot for that. Now, we are done because, we're doing this work here with what we can. So I would like to thank everybody. Before I do that, Ambassador Bamba will get the floor and we will conclude together. Thank you.
Before you conclude, I would like to follow up of what Kadibia said, because it's very, very, very important. It's important because that is reminiscent to what our mothers has done back in 1948 in Bassam, the first march of the women, Ivorian women in Bassam, during the colonization time when the husbands were arrested by the French rulers, and the women of Cote d'Ivoire have marched from Abidjan to Bassam, because Bassam used to be the capital and the seat of the governor, the French governor there. And this march was epic, and has remained in the memory, the collective memory of Ivorian, as a very, very historic feat of the Ivorian history. And the women of today are doing the part based on that historical landmark feat. I would like to commend those real heroes of Ivorian history in the making. I'm thinking about Filcheri Bale. She has been arrested. She's from the civil society. She's not from a party. She has to respond with dignity, indignation she felt with the violation of the constitution by Mr. Ouattara. Filcheri Bale has been arrested. I'm thinking about Anne-Marie Bonnefin, who has been arrested. I'm thinking about Mrs. Akisi Yobwe Antoinette, who has been arrested recently in Gagnoa, and she has been abducted. To date, we don't know where whereabouts. We think about the countless, many more women who were standing up and say no, they will express their indignity with that rampant dictatorship going on in Cote d'Ivoire. And is important in terms of gender empowering of Cote d'Ivoire. You have now in the political personnel of Cote d'Ivoire many women, brilliant women. I'm thinking about Yasmina Mounia, I'm thinking about Madame Boni Claverie, and many, many more from the PDCI, from the FA, of course, Madame Mrs. Simone Babo, the generic figure of the right of of women and the right of the people in general. There are many, many more. And this historic moment Cote d'Ivoire is going through will be strongly marked by the presence of women in the defense of democracy and the rule of Cote d'Ivoire. That's my last word. Thank you.
Well, I know we want to talk more. I see the but we are pressed by time, my brother, and I would like you to very excuse my rudeness, but not allow you to do that. I would like to thank everyone, every single person in here for your time to share this informative about the serious. Believe me, the crisis is serious. You might not perceive it from where you are because we are in the comfort of the United States and we are in the comfort, even though to the COVID. Imagine people facing COVID and dictatorship. What it is unimaginable. So I would like to thank Ambassador Bamba and Ambassador Cohen for your precious time, for being with us. Khadidia, thank you. Eric Eddy, and our special journalist invite and guest, Mr. Matthew. Thank you very much. We're looking for you. We finally got you. You came, and thank you very much. So on this note, I would like to end this session here. Thank you for being with us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ambassador.